We want to thank you for we thank you for the gift of life that you gave us, Lord. We say thank you for everything that you have done for us. Lord, we thank you for this time that we are going to share. Please, Lord, may you come and be our protector. Protect us in this program that we are going to start at this time. We pray all this to our Father, in the name of the Father, the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much for the word of prayer. And we want to welcome everyone that has joined the call. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, allow me to introduce to you our facilitator today. I'm going to ask him to introduce himself, and then after we'll take us in today's discussion.
Thank you so much, moderator. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is okay. Thank you for the prayer. So I'm here to help you pass this paper. It is very easy. We don't need to put pressure on us. So by the end of the session, I'm sure everyone will be singing where are the exams. Thank you so much. So for starters, we are going to first look at how this paper is set, so that the moment we reach there, we are already in position. So this is teacher Ismail Nkambo, who is going to take you through this. And my first appeal is to make you understand what you are going to expect in the paper come October, November, that period. Now, this paper is the easiest paper on planet Earth. Why? Because it is set in chapters. So the moment we shall reach that moment, every section A will be compulsory to all of us, where section A is got from book 1 and book 2. So when we say book 1, I'm sure people know what should be covered. Again, I'll again remind you of what should be covered in those areas. So we have book 1 and book 2, where we are going to have 2 questions, of which I myself not sure of them. But as we know, we can conceptualize those chapters that are in those 2 books, and we are ready to go. So you'll see the other section of the paper that has section B has 2 parts. So section B has 2 numbers from the first part and 2 numbers in the second part, meaning that a learner is supposed to choose 1 number from each part and the other number from the other part. So in total, a learner is supposed to do 4 numbers. Now, what do we need of you? So what we need of you is just to conceptualize those chapters that are in all those books. But most importantly, take a lot of caution on book 1 and book 2, because section A is compulsory to all of us. So therefore, that means a learner has to come well versed with those 2 sections or those 2 books. For example, previously last year, people were expecting a number about worship, not knowing that book 1 has 3 chapters. So they brought a chapter that was talking about celebrations, and everyone was almost crying. Yet we know these things before we enter the examination room. So friends, let us take a lot of time on those 2 areas, book 1 and book 2. For book 1, what we are supposed to cover, we have to look, there is worship. That is the first chapter. The first chapter talks about worship. As you can read very well, I was trying to put it down so that people can look at this and understand it. So when you read, you see, I'll say part 1 of section B has 2 numbers, of which a candidate is supposed to only attempt to 1, meaning that there are 2 numbers of which I've got from the whole book of book 3, and the other 2 numbers that I got from the whole book of book 4. So therefore, when you look at this, it becomes very easy. Why? Because we know the areas where we are expecting scenarios or tasks that we are going to respond to. Therefore, how are we going to go with this? So I wrote you tips of how to respond. Now, the challenge is the response. When we are setting these numbers of the new curriculum, we are targeting the mastery of the learner. We are not targeting the cramming of the student. No, we just want to see, did you understand in a class? That's why we say we need applicability. So you see all these scenarios we are bringing, they are brought in a way to attract you, apply the knowledge you had in class on paper. So when we go to these exams, please let us enjoy. Let us not put ourselves in pressure. Let us put the Islamic practices into practice, trying to address whatever is given to us. So therefore, you'll see I wrote tips on how to respond to IRE tasks. The first tip was comprehend the scenario before responding. Comprehend the scenario before any response. Therefore, that means for any task that is given to us, we are given a scenario that is going to direct us. Therefore, the responses should be in line with what the scenario is talking about. So how do we do it? The second tip I was writing down for you was know where to apply the Islamic values and principles in the tasks that are created. Now, after conceptualizing the scenario, you will see, I'm going to give examples later. You will see that there are some Islamic verses or Islamic hadith or practices of the Prophet that can suit the area in question. Therefore, make sure whenever you are to respond to a task, it is connected with what the scenario is talking about. Then the other tip was, as responding, if possible, import some of the statements from the scenario to complete the understanding of the scenario and to ease the work of the marker. Therefore, what do we mean here? Now, when you write a point, for example, you're talking about zakah. There's an example I'm going to give later. You're talking about zakah. You can import an hadith or a saying or a practice from the Prophet to suit what you are trying to explain. For example, you can say the Prophet once said, those who give are doubled. Meaning that when you bring such an hadith into the statement of, for example, if you are saying the person in question has to pay zakat to purify his or her wealth, and you bring such a quoting, it creates a lot of meaning to the marker. And when you are putting it, try to expound it a little bit more to show the marker that you know what you are talking about and you are getting it from the Quran or the hadith of the Prophet. So the other tip I talked about was for numbers that are compulsory, that is in section A, practical Islamic facts should be written. Practical Islamic facts, what do we mean? For example, when you're talking about prayer, there's when the Prophet said, bow the way I bow. Meaning that prayer is not performed because somebody wishes it, but it is performed because it is an act that God had commanded us through the Prophet. Because when you look at the Prophet was there just to help us interpret the Holy Quran. Because when you look at the complicity of the Quran, it was not easy for a layman to understand what God was trying to communicate to us. Therefore, that's why he's sending the Prophet. So whatever the Prophet did was a message from God. So when you tell somebody that you bow the way the Prophet used to bow, it means that you are bringing an Islamic fact into a point, and that will make you impress the marker. So the last tip I talked about was the most important part in section A and B of any task. Ask usually traditional beliefs. Oh, now what learners have forgotten when they concentrate, especially on section A. When you see section A, one is talking about an Islamic conduct or an Islamic form of worship. Then part B is always asking us the traditional beliefs. Don't forget, this is new curriculum. Friends, we had religions. We had a religion in Africa before the coming of those foreign religions. So they are trying to make you understand. Can you cross-tabulate your understanding from the old African format to what is called the new or to the religious kind of, so that we can address all the challenges that come across us. So now I think that is done with section A. Unless with their questions, we shall invite them later. So for section B, I said for the sake of section B, where tasks are got from book 3, all responses should be backed with the Quranic verses or hadith. That is not, there's a mistake, not of, it must be or hadith. Now, for section B, part 1, all the scenarios that will come from book 3. And now what we cover in book 3. Book 3, we have only 3 chapters. The first chapter being work, wealth, and leisure. So therefore, we are expecting numbers from that area. And by the way, when you look at those chapters, they are not as short as they sound. There's a lot of content that is within them. But when you cross-tabulate all these chapters and try to investigate the verses, there are verses that are going to cross-tabulate against each other. I'll give you examples. Now, for example, I can have an hadith for example, in work. In work, for example, we have Surah Al-Iman where they said, whoever gives receives more. So I can cross-tabulate such an idea into a chapter of peace. How? Now, for example, I can say, let me give an example here for easy clarity. Look at peace. There's a surah in peace. That is chapter 6 to 54. Surah Al-Iman, it says, when those who believe in our signs come to you, say, peace be upon him, or peace be upon you. When those who believe in our signs come to you, say, peace be upon you. Now, we can use the same Quranic verse to help us understand leisure, to help us understand conflict resolution, to help us understand marriage. You see, even in marriage, you have some misunderstandings. Imagine when your wife is very annoyed and you say, Salaam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, meaning have peace. Then the response will change. Her response will change. Why? Because you are wishing peace. So if we can track down and look at those verses, if I'm given a chance, I'll give you a category, a number of verses that we can cross-tabulate from one area to another area. So in section B, part 1, make sure, if possible, every point you give is backed with the Quranic verse, as I will give in the last examples in this session. So Quranic verses are very important when we are to understand and pass these things well. Now, I was also giving another example about conflict resolution. Surah Al-Jihad, that is verse 49 to 9, when we said, which says, if two parties of believers are in conflict, if two parties of believers fight, make peace between them. That is Allah saying, if two parties of believers are in fight, make peace between them. That means our God only loves peace. Make peace between them. So you see, I can use this verse and talk about marriage. But remember, I'm getting it from conflict resolution. You see, I can use it against peace. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So I cannot write my point naked. Why? Because it is not backed with the Quranic verse or hadith. At the end of it all in IRE, we want to see, does the learner have the mastery of applying what is in the Quran or applying what the Prophet did in practical life? So that's why these scenarios are going to come provoking you. So that's why I tell my learners, when you are going for these exams, please enjoy. You don't even need to think, just enjoy. Because you are just doing what you have been doing. In fact, that's why some people say this paper is passed more by practicing Muslims. But to my surprise, I see those who are not Muslims doing it very better. So please, we need to sit down, understand what we studied in class, understand what we practice in our daily lives, so that we can apply it into these tasks. So I was also giving another example of an habit that we can cross-tabulate from leisure to marriage to anything else. So you see there is a hadith about leisure where I say the Prophet said, make things easy. Where I say the Prophet said, make things easy for people and do not make them difficult. Meaning that even if the person is not as good as you expect, please make his or her work easy. Because when you do that, then you are serving God. Friends, if we go to that, the world is going to be very peaceful and we shall not have any conflict with anyone. So what we want as we are setting these scenarios is to make you use those practical Islamic teachings, use those hadith that were done by the Prophet, those practices, and apply them into our daily lives. Then I went to marriage. I also picked one verse that we can also cross-tabulate among different areas. So in marriage, we said, there's a verse in Surah Al-Nisa, that is verse 49. That's that verse 4 to 19. Please, friends, it's not a must that you have to quote these verses. If you're not sure of the verse, please don't. Just say a little about the verse. For example, don't go direct to the lines where the verse is. For example, this is 4 to 19, and somebody can say 5 to 19, then that is a different thing. Or 5 to 20, you can say Surah Al-Nisa, or you can say, God says in the Quran, live with them honorably, even if you dislike them. It may be that you dislike something and Allah brings about through it a great deal of good. Now, that's why we say when we are looking at the articles of faith, that last article where we say predetermination, you can look at a situation and think that you are tortured, yet there is a better situation that is coming behind that. So embrace the situation you are in so that you can get a better one. So when you look at marriage, that verse is telling us to remain humble, because as members of family, as the husband, as the wife, we are always annoyed. And this verse is trying to bring us down, telling us that moment you think you are not bothered, that moment you think you are not given enough care, maybe it is the moment that is going to push you to a better one. That moment you think you are tortured, that moment you think you are reading too much, they are waking you too early, there's a better moment that will come when you have passed exams. This is what we are trying to mean. So you look at these verses and try to bring them into different thinkings, into different challenges. That's why these questions are always provoking us to think. So friends, let us not worry on what to do, because this thing is very easy for us to maneuver. So I came up with some examples of scenarios, but before I could come to these examples of scenarios, I would like to invite some questions, if any, so that I don't dominate. And remember, this is a learner-centered session. You do a lot of, the teaching is back to you, not us. For us, we just come in and facilitate and see how we can get better to that. So are there any questions before I go to the examples of scenarios and how we can respond to them?
That will they attend to us also? Sir, good evening. Now, I was like asking that, is it also applicable to like CRI? Because I see some of the some of the topics in IRE are also similar to the one in CRE. Can you also apply that knowledge of IRE to CRE? Put the volume. You didn't put the volume.
Yes, thank you so much. The question is very welcoming and nice. Yes, of course. And when you look at CRE and IRE, they have all been merged to be the same. Because what we are studying in IRE, the chapters, the themes, they are almost the same. But what changes now is the quoting. For them, they are using the Bible. For us, we are using the Holy Quran and Hadith. So hope I've answered you well. Any other question?
Of course, it's mixed. It's doing both CRE and IRE. That's what they say. That is, he's going to do all in the past.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe there are no questions, but let me hope we are at the same page. Nobody is left behind. Are we at the same page? Hopefully so. Now, I try to dig down and find you some scenarios that we can base on to understand what I've been all talking about. And the first one was got from section A. It was got from section A, and it was about prayer. Hope all of you have studied this, and that's why I'm telling you right now, please don't throw away those notes or work of senior 1 and senior 2. They are very important. Now, when you look at this scenario, you are going to see they are telling us it is a Friday and it is time for Juma prayers. You see, they are getting these scenarios in practical life. Normal day, these are normal things we do. So they are telling us it is a Friday and it is time for Juma, and the time for Juma prayers is approaching. The time for Juma prayers is approaching. The Imam, the time for Juma prayers is approaching. The Imam, excuse me a bit. The Imam has been asked to prepare a sermon to deliver to the congregation. And this congregation, let me summarize. And the congregation, you're going to see before the congregation of the Imam performing the Juma prayers, there was a certain Eid prayer and Swalati Janaza prayer that was performed before the prayer. So the Imam is tasked to come and give a kutubah of the importance of community unity and prayers among the Muslims. So they are telling you, as they are asking you in the task, they are telling us to imagine if you are the Imam tasked to lead the Juma prayers. And the congregation, you give a brief outline. You are giving a brief outline of those prayers. Are we there? Are we following? You are giving a brief outline of the prayers and the key elements of the characteristics of each prayer. Now, for such a scenario, you'll first conceptualize. When we say conceptualize, understand what the scenario is talking about. So as a learner, first identify that, because when you understand the scenario, all your responses will be reflected to what is in the scenario. And by the way, you are going to find yourself importing some words from the scenario and putting them into your responses. And that makes a lot of sense. And that shows that you understood what was taught. And that shows that you can apply what you understood in your daily life. Now, imagine you are the Imam. So here we are to write a report. We are to write a brief report about what we should do in case we are assigned to be the Imam. You might not be the Imam of the area. You might, even the writer cannot, even now, you are not the Imam, but you know what the Imam is supposed to deliver according to the scenario. So they are telling us to briefly outline each prayer. So that means you have to know what must be done in the Juma prayer, Eid prayer, and the prayer for the dead. So what are those conditions? And at the end of it all, you are going to discover all these prayers, they are coming under a certain category, and that is the congregational prayer. So therefore, we are expecting an introduction from the learner, introducing to us what you are going to write. And usually when I'm telling my learners, when you are communicating, when you are writing, assume you are communicating with somebody who is just next to you. Don't try to assume that the examiner will know what you are trying to communicate. So friends, when we are doing this thing, give a brief introduction that is going to provoke the marker to make sure that I'm concentrating on a good learner, to give you a lot of time so that you can score highly. This time round, we are not after accumulation of points, those things people used to do, write 20 points. No, somebody can write 6, can write 8, and scores highly than that one was written a lot of, let me not call it rubbish. Now, when you look at this scenario, as a learner, what do you begin with? As a ready learner, should begin with defining to us what congregational prayers are. Because don't assume that the examiner knows congregational prayers. That's why I told you, attract your writing to impress the examiner to mark you well and score you highly. Friends, we should pass this paper. We should pass IRE. We should pass CRE. I know there are people now doing CRE. You can also use the same system. But now, here, we assume you know what we are going to talk about, and we assume you are going to portray what you know to people who don't know and love what you know. Am I communicating? Hope I'm communicating. Now here you're going to see when we say, imagine you are the imam. Prepare a brief outline. So we shall say, congregational prayers. These are prayers that are performed in a group of more than one person. So when we say group, that means they can be 2, 3, 4. Now, for the case of Juma prayers, these are performed on Friday. However, Eid prayers are special prayers. And among the Eid prayers, we have types. You see how we have been enjoying? Then the first type of Eid prayer, we have Eid al-Fitr, which is performed at the end of the month of Ramadan. Meaning that Eid prayers are only performed at the end of month of Ramadan, that is Eid al-Fitr. Then we have Eid al-Adha that is performed at the end of the month of Dhul Hajj, that is December. When people have gone to Mecca, these people are... Now, go ahead and show the examiner that when you talk about Eid al-Fitr prayers, they are always performed at the end of the month of Ramadan and followed with a payment called Zakat al-Fitr, with an aim of purifying one who's fasting. You see how you are bringing content? Now, when you proceed and say, these prayers are always performed in the morning. And for Eid al-Fitr, it is performed before. No, it is performed after one breaks his or her fast. So you are going to see for Eid al-Fitr, people fast eat before they go for prayers. So from the prayers, that's when they come back and prepare their feasts. So for Eid al-Adha, people will first go for prayers. That's why it's performed early in the morning. So all what you are writing, you are trying to introduce to us, you are trying to show us, you know what you are talking about. Then when you go to Salat Janazah, all those things I'm talking about, they are paragraphed. For every fact, put it in a paragraph. Am I communicating? For example, if you're talking about Juma prayers, say there are prayers that are performed in a congregation on a Friday, and they are always replacing the Dhuhri prayer. Meaning that after Juma prayers, Dhuhri prayers are not performed. You see? They are performed in a congregation led by the imam, who starts with, which start with adhan. Then from adhan, there's a sermon, and from the sermon, there is the performance of the prayer. Go to Salat Janaza. Talk about Salat Janaza, the prayer for the dead. This one has no specific time. Anytime a person dies, as long as it is not night, people come and perform this prayer, and it is an obligation to the community. Tell the marker, tell the examiner, if the community refuses to perform the prayer for the dead, all of them have a sin. All this is helping us to show the examiner that we know what we are talking about. So now that was a sample scenario I got for you, and there is some other one which I'm interested more for you to see, and we try to maneuver what is challenging us. Now, the other one was about to, let me find it. It was about to wealth. It was got from book 3. That is section section B of part 1. I'm trying to find it well. It is here. So Aisha is a successful businesswoman who has been blessed with a significant amount of wealth. She wants to ensure that her wealth is used in a way, not it is used in a way that pleases Allah and benefits society. In a way that pleases Allah and benefits society. So I beg your pardon, there is a correction there, because it must be, she wanted to ensure that her wealth is used in a way, not any way, in a way that pleases Allah and benefits society. Then the task is, the tasks are, what are the Islamic principles that Aisha should follow to manage her wealth? What are the Islamic principles that Aisha should use to manage her wealth? Now, you see, part B now is taking us to what I told you, the traditional teachings about wealth in the African setting. So they are trying to, in this curriculum, they are trying to show us that we have better potentials of being better than being relying on other foreign ideas. So when you look at the African setting, there was also a format of accumulation of wealth, a format of teaching and order of one getting wealth. So the Islamic way has it, and the traditional way had it. So by that, we want the learner to cross-tabulate, to understand. Does the learner understand really? How can I apply an hadith that talks about wealth in my daily life? How can I apply a Quranic quotation that talks about wealth in my daily life? How can I apply this quotation to make me feel at peace, to make me happy? Anyway, now I had a response about that. Now, you see, as I told you, for every item that is given, we must have an introduction. The introduction is very important, because the introduction is what is provoking the examiner to put a ready pen into all your statements. So if you don't put an introduction, we call it rape. You are raping, you are making the marker get annoyed. So when you introduce, this marker will be attracted to read more. Make sure as you are writing, you make this marker read your work. And by the way, in this curriculum, people who are still writing one line, you are milking a male cow. And I don't know whether you have ever milked a male cow. So it is better you write, because if you have content, you'll discover that you have 5 lines, 4 lines, 6 lines. So here, I gave a brief introduction and said Islamic teachings provide guidance on how to manage wealth that pleases Allah. Why are we saying this? Because all the wealth on earth is owned by Allah. It is God who gives wealth. So it is beyond our understanding. So when you give a brief introduction, to attract the marker to give you a good tick. Now, the first point was payment of zakah. And remember, friends, when you're writing your points, don't write notes. Some people write notes. Instead of making the point in a full sentence, that person says payment of zakah, full stop. He or she starts explaining. Those are notes. So this point should be in a full sentence that is reflecting what the task is trying to ask. For example, I did it this way. I said, payment of zakah is an Islamic teaching that can help Aisha manage her wealth in a way that pleases Allah. Now you see, I've wrote my point, bringing it back to what is asked, and I'm going to explain more. Friends, are we there? Let me hope we are there. So I went ahead and said, by paying a portion of her wealth to those in need is a fundamental aspect of Islamic teaching. What does it connote? Now you see, I'm connecting a practical form of worship to what I'm writing. Remember, initially I said payment of zakah is an Islamic teaching that can help Aisha to manage her wealth in a way that pleases Allah. Not writing payment of zakah, then I start by giving it. So when you put a full sentence, it will give you room to explain more what you have written, because this full sentence is pushing you. So if you say payment of zakah is an Islamic teaching that can help Aisha manage her wealth in a way that will please Allah, then what? How? You see? That's when we go ahead and say, by giving a portion of her wealth, now the giving of portion of her wealth is not coming from your head. It is an Islamic form of worship. It is a degree that was passed by Allah. It is a degree that was passed by Allah to the whole prophet. And he was told to make sure that people pay zakah. God knew that all of us can't be equal. And to create equality is putting a form of worship of paying zakah. So when we pay zakah, we are helping those ones who are in need. And when they are happy, we are closing the gap. Are you getting what I'm trying to communicate? So you say by giving a portion of her wealth to those in need is a fundamental aspect of Islamic teaching, then full stop. Then where are you getting that evidence? Where are you getting all those words you are saying it is a fundamental worship? Is it coming out of you? You back it with an hadith or Quranic teaching. I say, as the prophet said, you see? Now, I'm backing all my statements, getting them from what is said in the Quran, not what is said by me, and addressing to help Aisha, because all these statements, let us assume it is Aisha going to read them. Because Aisha has money, but she wants to please, she wants the money to be, to please her God. So that when she has money, she's happy. Some people have money and they are not happy. They are rich, but they are not rich mentally. They are always trying to get scared. They feel like running away, yet we see they are rich. So Aisha has the money, but wants to live in a community that is welcoming. Live in a community that is pleased with her existence. Now you see, when Aisha helps the needs or the needy, they will not come and steal her. They will not come and look at her as a bad person. They will look at Aisha as an asset in the community. And at the same time, this will please God. Friends, God will never come to our faces. God is our neighbors. The person next to you is serving us. So when we make these people happy, we are making God happy as well. So we said by giving a portion of her wealth to those in need is a fundamental aspect of Islamic teaching. Then I backed it with an hadith. When we say hadith, in practices or sayings of the prophet. It's not a must that you have to back with the Quranic quotations, because Quranic quotations are very complex. When you try to write something that is not true, for example, a verse, you are off. But it is easier to grasp the hadith or the sayings of the prophet. So what the prophet said was a message. Whatever the prophet said, it was not coming out of his head. It was just passed to him, to us, to ease the understanding of the Holy Quran. I'll not dig into that, but let me show you how we can do it better. So you see, I'm backing it with a Quranic hadith, and saying that the prophet said, and I'm putting peace be upon him. Please respect the prophet. This is not a normal human being. So the prophet said, charity does not degree one's wealth. Charity does not degree wealth. Therefore, giving the portion of, you see, I'm now bringing what the scenario had talked about. I'm now importing some words from the scenario, putting them into my points so that I can conclude it very well. You see? So I'm saying, therefore, giving the portion of her wealth to the needy will not only double, there's something missing, will not only double her wealth, but also please Allah, the owner of wealth. So friends, the more you give, the more you get. That's what we are trying to mean. For example, imagine people go to the gardens and plant one seed of bean. But when they are harvesting, they harvest like 20 seeds of bean or beans from the one seed. You see? That's what we are talking about. The more you give, the more you get. That's what the prophet told us. So we are telling Aisha, according to the verse of the prophet, when you give more, you will get more. Then Aisha will ask, how? So the how part, it is you to explain. You see, by doing all this, she's pleasing Allah, and in the same way or in the same line, helping the community of the needy and creating a friendly environment within the community. So that means for Aisha to be safe, she has to help others, so that those others don't look at her as a bad person, instead look at her as an asset. For example, let me give an example. Imagine being rich in a community, and you are the only rich person, and all your neighbors are very poor. Do you think you will be safe? You will not be safe, because everyone will be looking at you. You are the one who has the food. So you will not sleep. They always keep on your doors to see that they can come and get what you have. But when you give, these people will look at you as their asset. And that's what Allah is telling us. That's why the prophet is commanding us to do. So friends, you see now, when you look at my paragraph, it's not 2 lines. And I've not wrote miracles. You don't need to have to umbilical cords to write all this statement. It's very easy, as long as you understand what you are talking about. Hope I'm communicating, friends. So the other point I can use for you to try to reflect as I wait for some questions to come in, I gave another point. The other point was Aisha should continue being honest and fair in her business dealings with other people. Remember, Aisha she's already rich, but she's looking of ways of pleasing Allah. Whether you can be rich and not pleasing Allah. Of course, we have seen people who have had money, and in just 2-3 years, they don't have the money. Just because the money might be legal, or they might be getting money in ways that do not please Allah. Allah is very good and friendly. So, you see, if you want to remain with your money, if you want to remain with the wealth, Islam is telling us, continue being honest and fair in your businesses. Because when you track examples from your communities, people are not honest. You buy a kilo of sugar, but half of it is clear sand or dust. We have seen these things in your communities. People are using weights, but under the weights, there are certain, you know that. I don't want to dig into that. So what we mean here, we are helping Aisha to be pleased that the money she has is blessed by Allah. How? We are telling her to continue being honest and fair in her business dealings. Not be that businesswoman who is going to increase prices of commodities because there is scarcity. Not to be that businesswoman who wants to get absolute profits, abnormal profits. So in line, so we are telling her, now after that statement, you see, I'm backing it with a Quranic fact. So we said she should ensure that business dealings are honest and should avoid any form of exploitation. friends, if you want to be loved by God, even if you know the mathematics, some people are well blessed and they are gifted. You know mathematics, but what you do, you only solve it to yourself. You are milking a male cow. You will not pass. Even if you pass, you will not benefit from it. So what we are trying to mean here, if you are blessed with something, share it with others. The more those others do it, the more those others bless it, the more you are blessed. This is what we're trying to tell Aisha. Let Aisha continue being honest. Because some people are rich but exploitative. You have maids home. You know what you do home. People are not fair because you are paying the maid the money. Once she breaks the glass, you have to deduct on. Then you are exploitative. You are not fair. You're not honest. So we are telling Aisha to continue being honest, not to exploit either the customers or her workers in her business dealings, in order to remain with wealth that is blessed by Allah. Then I'm backing it with an hadith. I say this as the Prophet said, as the Prophet. So I'm connecting my statement to a fact that is in the Holy Quran, to a fact that was said by the Prophet. Then I say, as the Prophet said, truthfulness leads to righteousness, and righteousness leads to paradise. So whoever wants to go to paradise has to be honest. If it is 2,000 you are getting, please be happy with the 2,000 and share it again. You see? So that's why you are. So every point you are addressing should be addressed to Aisha, because it is Aisha in question. So that's why whenever we say Aisha should. So by writing that statement said by the Prophet, truthfulness leads to righteousness, and righteousness leads to paradise. You can even go ahead and rotate on only that statement to conclude your sentences or to conclude your paragraphs. For example, you can say, the righteous are those who do good. And to do good, you must be trustful. So the trustworthiness of a person drives a person to the righteous. And being righteous, you are going to paradise. Nobody does not. Everyone here wants paradise, including me, the facilitator. I want paradise. That's why we say, if you want paradise, let us do good. Even when nobody is watching, let us do good. Are you trustworthy? So we are telling Aisha, even when you have money, are you still not exploitative? If you are not, then God is going to bless your wealth and double it more. So you see, at the end of the point, I'm concluding it, bring it back to the question, or bring back to the task. We don't have questions in the new curriculum. Bring back to the task. So I'm saying, therefore, if Aisha wants to please Allah, should continue to remain honest and trustworthy. You remain honest and trustworthy. So I don't want to dominate. I told you this curriculum is purposely for you. You are the teachers. For us, we are facilitators. We just come in to guide here and there. But hopefully, let me think I've communicated. And if there are questions, I beg to invite them. And we harmonize. We harmonize. I think let us use a section of getting questions as I write them down so that I respond to them at once. Please, you can prepare. Okay. Yes, Jamia, you can unmute.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, how are you?
Sir, my question is, but what if I don't know the verses very well, but I have clear points that are related to the question, but my verses are not clear, so I decided not to put them, and I put my points, which are relevant and clear.
Okay. Noted.
Okay, mute.
Yes, I'm seeing one from Academy, please. Yes, you can go on with your question.
Can you please help us with the response for item 1?
BOD Benaf.
Can you please help us with the response for item 1?
Repeat your question.
Can you please help us with the responses for item 1?
Okay. It's okay. Kasana Secondary School.
Does every item require an introduction or not?
Okay. Every item. Thank you so much. Are the questions done? I want to respond to them at once. Chinoni, I see Chinoni integrated. Yes, you are on.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
Sir, we are asking that are we allowed to answer Islamic questions with the Arabic language?
Thank you so much. Answering Islamic questions with Arabic language. Okay. So we have Arabic. Yes, you are on.
What if a question comes demanding for a Quranic verse yet you don't know? How do you do?
Demanding, repeat.
What
The
if
question
a
comes asking
question,
for Islamic verses.
yes, and you do not know well the
And you are
Quranic
not versed
verse?
with them. Okay. Two more questions, 2, 3. Lango College. Yes, Lango College.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
So I would request that you would help us with one item from CRI, because we are trying to follow up with Islam. We are not getting.
Okay, one item from CRE.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And now I don't know whether in all items you must give all the introductions or not.
Okay, introductions.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Lumuze, yes. Lumuze, yes. Lumuze, you're on. Lumuze. So I'm running with only 3 to 2 questions to close the questioning and then respond to what is asked. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I was just asking when we are replying our items, yeah? When we are replying the items. They told us that
Yes,
we
when you
are
are replying the
supposed to,
items.
we are
Pardon?
not supposed to, when we are,
Be clear, be clear. I'm following. When you are replying items,
are we supposed are we supposed to
are we
use
supposed
chronic
to?
acids?
Are we
To use
supposed to?
chronic acids. To use chronic
To use Quranic
acids.
teachings? Okay.
Acids.
Question got? One other more. Any other?
When we are as in when we are replying, are we supposed to use as in the Christian teachings
When you are replying to what?
to items?
Items in IRE or CRE?
In
Please, you are
IRE.
still on.
Yes.
So I'm ending with one person then to respond to all.
How can we relate Islamic teaching? How we can
Do you have any
relate?
other questions?
How can we relate with? Yes.
How can
Yes.
we? Mm.
How can we relate
Mm-hmm.
the Christian
Christian teachings
the,
to
the Christian teachings and Islamic teachings
Okay, how can we relate the Christian teachings? That is in CRE or IRE?
in IRE?
You cannot bring Christian teachings into IRE. No, please. No, no, no.
When we are
Islam is
relating,
different from Christianity. Hope that is answered. So allow me respond to what is asked. I see. I'm waiting for two more, then I go to the responses of your questions. Okay, friends, thank you so much for the questions. When you see learners asking questions, you just know they have been following. Thank you so much. Now I'll begin with the last question that was asked, that can we cross-tabulate Christian teachings into IRE? The answer is a big no. These are two different disciplines which have different responses. But again, when you see CRE and IRE and what we cover in both disciplines, they are the same. Even the applicability remains the same. Now, the difference here with the CRE, what is quoted is got from the Bible, or Bible verses or quotations. Now, for IRE, we expect quotations either from the Quran or Hadith. So in the same vein, allow me answer one who was asking, is it a must for every point to have Quranic quotations? It is not a must. But remember, we are in a competitive world. The winner takes it all. So if you want to be
Everyone can be better, but you want the best. So if you want to be the best, it is easy. These Quranic verses are easy to get. I told you we have Quranic verses that can cut across. I can get a Quranic verse from marriage and answer it to a task that is asking about peace. You get it? I can get a Quranic verse that is coming from conflict resolution and bring it into peace or marriage. I can even cross-tabulate a verse that is coming from prayer, then bring it to marriage. So the importance of all this is to understand, not to cram. The curriculum of cramming is gone. So it is us to understand what we are trying, what is taught in class and apply it in our real lives. So friends, those ones who are not well versed with the Quranic verses, it is not a must. But again, you will suffer the consequences. Because I told you the winner takes it all. Survival for the fittest. The one who is fit will survive. So we can all be fit. Because we don't need to have two umbilical cords to be fit. No. So it is up to us to sit down. I've already told you the areas, how the paper is going to be set. Already you enter the paper when you have a bullet in the chamber. So it is up to you to touch the trigger or leave the trigger. Imagine going to a paper knowing that section A is book 1 and book 2. And in section A, book 1, we talk about worship. You see? Easy. We talk about ceremonies. We talk about, those are easy things. So what takes you long to sit down and look at those verses that can cross-tabulate? You still have time. So instead of going back to cram and fear, fix all your time understanding, interpreting these verses into your own understanding, so that when tasks come, you know when to use which verse. Even in the CRE, know when to use the Bible verse to which area. Are you getting it? So I think I've answered you on that. Now somebody was asking, Islamic verses, are you supposed to put? Yeah? So this question was, are we supposed to put Arabic in Islam? As long as you can turn your Arabic into English, there's no problem. But the moment you write your Arabic, Islam is very different from Arabic. Islam is Islam and Arabic is Arabic. That's why there are two different disciplines. We have Arabic separately and we have Islam separately. So therefore, friends, it is better to start early because this is an elective. It is not a compulsory thing. That means you go into it, no, you have to, and it is very disheartening and dismaying to fail CRE or Islam. Very easy. These are normal things we are doing in daily lives. So the one who's saying that you are not well versed with the verses, you can start now. Start now. It's not late. For example, as you are reading about worship, go down and track down the verses or hadith that talks about all worship. It is very easy. You can get 15 verses and have 6 in your head. Those are enough to make you pass. As long as you don't leave a response that has no backing. Imagine writing all the responses that are not backed with Islamic facts. Then are you ready? Are you the person we are waiting for? So friends, we can do better. We can. It's not late. So it is up to us now to start understanding. That's why we should praise these people who brought these platforms. You have got free knowledge. Now it is up to you to start now. So start now, prepare, it's not late. So another question was, every item requires an introduction. When I'm teaching in class, I love giving silly examples. Let me also bring it here. Imagine you are, let me hope all of you have ever been conned. If you have never been conned, at least you have conned. When somebody just rushing to telling you, hey, you have, you see, doesn't make sense. Imagine somebody say, you have a good nose, look at the eyes.
But in actual sense, you know the eyes are not good. But because they have talked about something that is attracting you, you'll bend to listen. So introductions are the same way. Imagine, so, markers are also human beings. We are stressed. But now imagine going to a learner who was introduced very well. You'll even forget what the wife did to you. You understand? So introductions are very important. They show that you understood or you understand what you're going to write to us. So I don't know now. For me, when I have a paper that has no introduction, I call it raping. You have raped the paper. So where will I get the modes? That's why you see when we are marking, we are supposed to read every point, but remember, as markers, the more papers, the more money. So if I read 3-5 points when they are very neat, trust me, I will not read deep. I'll only see is the point there, then give a tick. You understand? That's why they say, begin with the point you know best. Because we are also targeting wealth. So if you're a person who's not going to write an introduction, it is up to you. You are digging your own grave. And remember, this is your future. You don't know what will come tomorrow. So why don't you do it now? What does it connote? What does it take? So I think it is better for us to start adopting the system of writing introductions, even in history, because I also teach history. It's very nice. So when we write these introductions, we are persuading the marker. We are conning the marker, in short. So you don't write it, then the ball is in your hands. So I think I've answered you. I'm not just cumbersome, but I'm trying to help you because this is a chance. You people to be better people. Another one was every item required. I've answered that one. Help me with the response on item 1. I don't know what you need, or you need the full answers of the item, but I was trying to show you how it can be. Okay, I'll come back to see that. Then the other one, if I don't know any verse, then if you don't know any verse, you people, listen, friends, listen in. The hard way is the only way. If what makes you hard not to get these verses? What is wrong with it? Is it too hard? Is it equivalent to digging an acre of land? It is you who's putting something that is not possible. It is possible. Life was created like that. The more you fight, the more but you can do this better. For example, let me give you an example. Let me give you a technique of grasping these verses. For example, if you went down and researched about these verses, let's say worship, let's say peace. Because you see the verses of peace and the conflict resolution and leisure and marriage. When you look at these verses, they cut across. You can bring a verse that you got from peace and bring it to marriage. What is wrong with that? As long as you know the verse. Is that hard? So instead of betting, instead of watching Arsenal, because Arsenal will continue playing the many years, even if people died, Arsenal is true. First, concentrate on this. Fix time and write down. Because you had 15 verses. Try to remind yourself, if you can remember 2. For example, you can read 15 and remember 1. That is very okay. That is very okay. Don't cheat yourself. Go back again. Go back again and reread until the point that will come that these verses are now flowing in your head. It is possible. It is easy. Why would you sleep a day without writing at least 5 verses? What is hard with that? And you say you cannot get any. This is our future. I'm not being cumbersome, but I'm trying to help you know that these things are very easy. Because we believe that God told us, even in the Quran, whatever you work for, you will get it. You cannot get it immediately, but you will get it. That's why when I'm teaching about prayer, I mean work. That's why God said in the first adhan of Subhi. Do you know it? He said, as-salatu khairun minan nawm, meaning that a prayer is better than sleep, and that prayer is in the morning. So when I'm talking about work, I can bring that Quranic verse where God said that a prayer where the prophet reminded us that prayer is better than sleep. You understand? Meaning that everyone has to wake up very early. So God needs people who wake up early. Now you see, I'm bringing a verse from prayer, putting it to work. Is that hard? It's not hard. Friends, let us enjoy these papers. Let us be experts. You see? So please allow me to invite a CRE teacher so that you can be well versed with what we are trying to ask. But again, please don't forget that these things are very easy, very easy. Let us enter these papers very happy. Don't even get scared. Make sure you are happy. Unless when you are unhappy, there are problems. Smile up to when the paper ends. So allow me invite the CRE teacher to rectify some of your challenges. Thank you so much. Can we use is every point in CRE allowed to be backed with a Bible verse? Yes, like those who have CRE students on call, you may ask your question. Yes, there is someone who had a question. So those who wanted some clarification in CRE, kindly raise up your hand. Someone had a question on CRE. Yeah, but let me look through the chat. But the first question, there's a question. Okay, Lango College, unmute. Sorry, Lango College. Nakura May, you can unmute. Lango College, unmute.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Okay, this is how my question goes. Like in Sierra, when our questions are set, do they all come through the Bible context? And when attacking them, how do we begin and how do we end? Does it need an introduction and a conclusion? And when answering it, when applying, are we allowed to quote some verses in the Bible?
Thank you. Any other person, or I answer only that one?
Tango College, ask.
That is our question. If there is any, we shall add on.
Okay. Then Patango State Secondary School, unmute, and Nakura also you can ask. Oh, Nakura, I'm not getting you. Light Vocation Secondary, unmute, and Alab Computers.
Okay.
Light Vocation.
I'm asking.
Go on.
I'm asking that
Yes.
I would like to know more about how we can apply on questions of the African traditional societies.
Okay, thank you. The last person.
Alab Tech Computers. Alab Tech Computers.
Okay, let me respond to the two. So in these subjects of CRE, it is not true that all questions come from the Bible. So there are three categories of how questions are set. One, we have the biblical contexts where they get biblical verses or quotes from either Old Testament or New Testament, and then they put sometimes 2 6 or 1. So in most cases, whenever you see a biblical text, what should come in your mind is that there is going to be a Christian kind of point of view or teaching. And then what do? Under such a condition, for instance, they say God created man, he made a woman from the rib of a man, and then blah, blah, blah. Then it goes on to quote Genesis. Eventually, they'll think about areas around marriage, probably. Then they tell you to explain the Christian views about marriage. So you are supposed to create a point, which point we are now calling a conceptual knowledge of what they are talking about. Then afterwards, pick a line from the Bible quote that is given in the paper that relates to your idea. It is the one we shall call it a conceptual understanding. Then thereafter, relate to the scenario they are talking about, because scenarios will always be brought and then you have to refer back to the scenario. So it is not true that all of them come from the Bible. Some will come from the contemporary world. Someone will bring any name, say Mr. Kapere fought with a wife, and then the children came in, and then they also want to fight with the father. Then all of a sudden they say, explain the Christian teaching about such a scenario. So in most cases, when it is contemporary, then they expect you to bring the Christian point. So when you are bringing Christian points, please and please do not quote, because sometimes when you quote, your answers may be wrong, and yet you have an idea. So what you can do, you refer and say, in the Bible, it says this. So avoid quoting, because in most cases, it's not easy to remember exact chapter, though when you quote, it is the best, if you can really think of such verses. Then, do we give an introduction? When they are marking, they are looking at how you're presenting your essay. So where necessary, you can give, because usually in these scores, we are going to discover that they are giving 24 marks for each number. When you multiply times 4, you come up with 96. So the other 4, the examiners will determine how you have presented the essay, how you have linked with the work given, and award you the final 4 score. But just know that there are always 2 parts. There is A and B, or sometimes they will bring a compound part. That is 1 part. And when they bring that, write 8 ideas, because the 8 ideas should have the conceptual understanding, which you call CK. It should have the conceptual knowledge, sorry. Then the CU is the conceptual understanding, and then how it applies, which we call the application, or AP. So the answer given should reflect 3 things there. Then somebody talked about traditional African society. Whenever they bring about traditional African society, we are talking of the ancient Africa, not the modern Africa. So whenever you're giving an answer in line with the text given, or an idea or scenario, you are supposed to present it in past tense. So candidates, please use past tense. For example, when you say, in African traditional understanding of marriage, divorce was not allowed. That is the conceptual understanding. Then rather knowledge. Then bring how it was not allowed, or why it was not allowed. And then in that explanation, it should also be in the past tense. So the first 2 lines should be past tense, and then thereafter you relate back to do the text given. So that's how I can summarize the few questions you have asked me, unless there's any other person. Thank you.
Nakubulwa, ask.
There are questions.
Nakubulwa. Nakubulwa May, your hand is up, but we can't hear you. Okay. Nakubulwa, we have failed to get you. Then maybe Light College, Light Vocation, unmute.
Yes, good evening, sir. My concern is about, are we allowed to give an idea? Are we allowed to give an idea in a negative way? All form. Are we allowed to give points in a negative form?
Thank you. So to respond to you, we are not allowed to give an idea in a negative way unless it is quoted from the text. or the Bible, because in some of the letters, for example, in St. Paul's letter to the Galatians, he was a bit negative. He even one time rebuked them. He even called them fools. And he was encouraging them not to do those bad things they were doing, unless it is quoted, but we are supposed to be positive. So look out for the positive, but not the negative way. I see Nakubulwa still, the hand is up. Nakubulwa, please unmute. Morris.
Morris Academy? Morris Academy?
Excuse me, sir. I would like to inquire if I'm given an item and it consists of part A and part B. Am I allowed to make a conclusion on part A and B, or I make at once on part B?
Okay. So there's no harm in making a conclusion on either parts. It is okay. But there are parts that will not call for any conclusion. So it will always depend on the task given, but there's no harm in giving a conclusion.
Hello.
Yes.
How do we start the introduction?
How do we
start the introduction?
The introduction will always depend on the task given. If the task is about marriage, you then can give an introduction about the definition of marriage, and that's all. If it is about worship, you'll talk about anything of worship, and like that. So you just create some small introduction around it.
Okay. Do we state the problem statement?
Hey, it is okay. There is no problem. But remember, these numbers are 4, and we are writing a big SC. So I don't want you to dwell much into that, because you're going to miss out on time. The candidates of last year were complaining that the time was not enough, and I am sure in your practices of all the 4 tasks you are supposed to handle, you must have seen that they are really tasking in terms of time management. So if you have given your introduction, you can straight away go and say, as a Christian, they should do the following, and you continue. So don't dwell much on it, because we want you to raise enough points, and then you go. Msitwa. Msitwa secondary, can you unmute?
Thank you so much. All right, friends. Hope everyone has benefited out of this. We pray that the lovely God, because it's lovely, helps you maneuver and persevere all the targets you want. Let us continue praying to God. Let us not forget God. Let us work hard until the last minute, because these exams we are going to do have no film star. There is no film movie here. Everyone can become a star, but it will depend on the input we put in. Friends, please never get tired. Whenever you feel tired, something good is coming. I know waking up is not easy, but it is better reading in the early morning. Let us not waste a lot of time doing nothing. Let us make sure at least for every day you have conceptualized something new, and you can easily, let us make it a practice. Why would you sleep without writing an essay? Friends, let's do these things. They are easy. So the more we do this, the more they will get to us, the more we shall win. So those people who are saying, me, I cannot do this, who told you? You can do it. Even the prophet who could not read was squeezed to read. He read. So who is you is refusing to read? Please let us read, because that is the only way and so that we can even change our lives and change our nation. If all of us, for me, I'm unlucky I was not in the new curriculum. You people who are in the new curriculum are going to help our country because you are studying things that are practical. For us, we studied things which you cannot even use now. Imagine somebody is reading the Quran and now can cross-tabulate what he has read it from the Quran to real life. That's what we want. And if we can get Sahabas or Sheikhs or Imams that can preach in English, that is the better. All the Imams we have here are preaching in Uganda, their local languages. They cannot translate what they are talking about. But now you people are going to conceptualize what you are reading, put it in daily life, and life will be better. So please, colleagues and the committee that is organizing this, I'm very happy, thankful for meeting such an audience, a listening audience. We shall meet again, don't worry. They will organize another session where we shall only deal with the responses. We shall deal with only items. We shall come with a list of items. I see hands are up. I see hands up, please. Unless there's something burning you would like to say, but for now, let us give a chance for 2-3 people, then we close it up. Alua, please. Yes, say something very fast. Alua, SS. Be audible enough.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
Fine. My question goes to the CRE teacher.
Your question goes to?
The CRE teacher, facilitator.
CRE teacher, yes.
Yeah, my question goes, how many responses is one supposed to give for a particular task?
Okay, thank you so much, friends. I know you have a lot of questions. We shall respond to those questions maybe in the next session because we are time bad. I know time is sorry, we cannot respond unless when there is an issue that's not a question. We don't want questions now because we are caught by time. We're supposed to be doing other tasks. But thank you so much. Let me give one chance to one person and we'll close it up. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Time is not a good friend. It is always like that. Hope to meet you again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.